Hey, second graders. In math today, we're going to be understanding that the three digits of a three-digit number represent hundreds, tens, and ones. So let's start with that first problem that asks us how many tens are there in 280. And a good strategy for solving this is to draw that out. So you can either draw it out in the small space that's provided. I don't think that's really enough room for me, so I'm going to do it on a separate piece of paper, and you can always do your drawings on the back of this same paper also. So I'm going to draw out my ones, my tens, and my hundreds. I'm going to draw out my 200s first. Okay, there's my 200s. I'm going to draw out my 8 tens. And then, of course, I have a 0 in the ones place, so I don't have to draw out any ones. Now, I'm going to think about decomposing that number for just a minute. Think, second grade, about how many tens it takes to make a 100. It takes 10 tens to make a 100, right? So this first 100 would be made from 10 tens. So I'm going to exchange that 100 for 10 tens. Okay, so there's my exchange there. Now, of course, it would take 10 tens to make the second 100, so I'm going to exchange my 100 for 10 tens. And then I'm going to count how many tens I have. So we know this was 10 tens. We know this is 10 tens. And remember, in the number 280, we had 8 tens that we drew to start with. So now we just need to think about 10 plus 10 plus 8. And 10 plus 10 is a doubles fact, so we know that that's 20. And 20 plus 8 is 28. So to make the number 280, we could make that using 28 tens. And remember how in second grade we've learned how the answer is hidden in the problem. So how many tens are there in 280? There's 28 tens. Okay, let's look at our next problem that we have. On our next problem, it says 718 is the same as, okay, so I'm going to identify with that three-digit number which digit is in the ones place, which digit is in the tens place, and which digit is in the hundreds place. So if I look at that number, I'm going to remember that the ones place is on the far right. And so the 8 is in the ones place. With a three-digit number, my tens place is in the middle position. So I have 110. And my hundreds place is on the far left. And so my 7 is in my hundreds place. Okay, the next problem you have says to write the number that has 5 ones, 13 tens, and 4 hundreds. So let's think about that for just a minute. Get a piece of scrap paper because I want to draw this one out to help me. Good mathematicians do drawings all the time to figure things out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and draw this out. I'm going to draw out those 4 hundreds first. Okay, there's my 4 hundreds. I'm going to draw out 13 tens. I always like to group them in groups of 5. Okay, there's my 13 tens. And then I'm going to draw out my 5 ones. Okay, so now I've represented that number with a drawing. 4 hundreds, 13 tens, and 5 ones. Okay, but I have to remember something in math. I know that 10 tens makes 100. So if I have 13 tens, I know that I have 10 tens inside that number. Here are those 10 tens. And 10 tens I can exchange for 100. So now I've made that exchange. So now I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hundreds. Let me go ahead and write that down. Okay, let's see how many tens I have left that I did not exchange. And there's 3 of them left out of my circle that I did not exchange. And then I still have the same number of ones that didn't change. So I have 5 ones. So 5 ones, 13 tens, and 4 hundreds is the same thing as 535. And then the last thing I want us to talk about today is how we can make the largest number using a 5, a 3, and a 7. Okay, so I'm going to think about this for just a second. If I'm trying to make the biggest number or the largest number possible, I'm going to want to put the biggest digit in my hundreds place. So I've got a 5, a 3, and a 7. I know that 7 is the largest, so I'm going to put 7 in my hundreds place. My second largest number, because I've already used the 7, so my second largest number is going to be the 5. So I'm going to put the 5 in the next biggest place value, which would be the tens. And then I'm going to put my smallest number in the ones place. So 753 is the largest number that I can make using a 5, 3, and a 7.